Ed Marsh here with a quick tip on industrial sales and marketing and getting ready for Manufacturing Day coming up in 2 weeks. Hopefully you've got some plans for Manufacturing Day. It's a really appropriate and important recognition of the impact of manufacturing on our economy. So today's topic, we're going to start with a question. Who's your competition? If you're like most companies, you'll answer that question with a list of companies who sell the same thing that you do. You've probably got a list of your advantages that you hope will differentiate you. Some companies are conscious of another competitor, one that wins increasingly often. That's the status quo. I mean, after all, companies and executives are so busy and there are so many demands on resources that for a project to make it through the gauntlet of large buying teams to actually get implemented is nearly miraculous in many cases these days. But there's another competitor that companies rarely consider. That's an entire other set of solutions that can help prospects achieve the same thing. Let's take an example from the capital equipment space where a number of my clients work. Here's a typical scenario. A sales rep gets a call from a plant engineer who says they have a project to increase capacity. They've got a new contract coming, they have to start producing more, and they're looking for new equipment to help them hit their production targets. Now you can imagine that gets a rep with happy ears, all excited. After all, there's pain. The prospect's going to lose a new customer if they can't produce more. There's a timeline. The contract is supposed to start delivering in 9 months, for instance. There's a budget. Of course there's a budget. They've got a new customer, and they're only talking to a couple other vendors. I mean, yeah, of course, the plant engineer might have asked some questions about floor space. It's tight. And about disruption for implementation. They can't afford to shut down current production. Or even about flexibility to run other products in the future in case the contract doesn't renew. But those questions are routine after all. So the rep is all fired up, puts the sales engineer through a design and quoting process and submits a long quote with lots of clarifying points about all the technical differentiation they offer from competitors. Lots of follow-up ensues. Many clarifications on technical details and commercial terms. It's sounding good. And then there's a question about rental options. That's not so good. I mean, after all, machine companies are in the new machine business after all, and every machine is typically fully customized for the application. But the plant engineer says he's not worried. That's just a question somebody in finance asked about. Everything still looks like it's on track. And you know where this is going. In the end, the prospect buys nothing. They rent nothing. Instead, they find a co-packer who can produce the product for them. Sure, it costs a bit more on a per unit basis, but they're able to launch the new contract on time with no capital cost, no disruption to their current line, and no significant reorganization to accommodate limited floor space. In this case, the competitor was an entirely different way to accomplish what the legendary Harvard Business School professor Clay Christensen called the job to be done. The prospect never needed a machine. They needed product produced to fill their new contract. You've probably heard the drill and the shovel stories. Nobody buys a shovel, rather they buy a hole. I'd argue that's wrong. They don't buy a hole, rather they buy a nicely planted bush or a nice fence built around the post that they installed in the hole. So it's really important that your marketing and sales messaging recognize other solutions to your prospects' jobs to be done. You should discuss them preemptively. I can guarantee you that you're not going to give them any ideas they don't already have, but instead you'll build credibility and trust and possibly even help them evaluate and weigh the options differently by adding your perspective. You've got to expand your horizon of competitors to understand it goes well beyond the companies that sell the same things you do, to include other ways the prospect can achieve a similar or adequate outcome. Understanding your buyer's perspectives is key to industrial marketing and sales, and this is a great example.